Welcome back to the F3 Northeast Way Q Source podcast. Got my good friends here with me, Roscoe P, Rich O'Donnell, and Matt Brady, Tube Top. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So we got our chapter right now, Q 1.7, Shield Lock, and I thought appropriate to bring some friends on to have a three-way conversation, and especially two guys I know to be friends. I see, we see you show up together at the workouts. We hear you praying for each other. You're praying for each other's families. I don't know to what extent the friendship goes, but I know that it's more than just surface level. So, gentlemen, I appreciate your willingness to come on and talk about Shield Lock. So for those of us that maybe don't know your story, so why do you guys ride to the workout every day together?
Go ahead, Matt.
I mean, we're neighbors, so you don't always choose your neighbors. But yeah, proximity was definitely one of those things that brought us together. But we are lucky to have wonderful neighbors in the O'Donnell family for sure. So,
and is this like next door or down the street or what?
No, it's like what, 3 doors down, right?
Yeah, three houses separation. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then how long have you guys lived in that neighborhood?
10 years.
Roscoe, how long you been there?
I've been there 8.5 years. So,
Gotcha.
and Tube Top's got 3 daughters who align with the ages of my kids, like just offset by about a year or so. And then he was actually the one who recruited me at the cul-de-sac barbecue. He recruited me to come out and try F3, which I did not come willingly.
Did you get anybody else to come or just Roscoe?
Oh, at the barbecue?
Yeah,
I think it was just Roscoe at the barbecue, but yeah, they're you know how it works with F3. It's like you have this branching effect. So
yeah, and hopefully Roscoe didn't vomit at the first workout like that FNG did this past Monday.
No, thankfully I didn't. I was second wind, but I didn't vomit, thankfully.
So Tube Top, how long had you been going before you invited Roscoe?
It was really short. It had only been a couple of months, and Rich will tell you he's not generally a morning person, but that was probably the biggest hump we had to get over. But he joined like pretty shortly after I had extended the invite. So
gotcha. So then what's that done for your guys' friendship? So clearly you were knew each other enough to accept it, but this how many years now you guys been riding to the workout together?
But it's probably since 18, Matt.
Wow.
Yeah, probably almost 6 years, going on 6 years.
Yeah.
So 6 years of riding to the workouts together. I'd just love to hear you guys' comments on what that does for a friendship, for getting to know people, and then we can talk about the power of friendships, and then before we go too much further after that, I want to introduce Shield Lock just as a concept. But what's that done for your friendship? I'm sure you're more than just neighbors borrowing salt and sugar these days.
Absolutely. It's it's helped to grow our friendship tremendously. Like I said, initially the 5:30 start was a real detractor for me. So it took some convincing to get me to come out. And I started off like once a week. I would come on Fridays, and like a lot of other people have experienced, like once you start coming one day a week, then then it doesn't sound so bad to come a couple other days a week. So now we've bumped it up to the point where we usually try to get 5 days a week. At least I do. Sometimes he goes as an overachiever and tries to do the weekend, but I take off. So.
Yeah, it is interesting because I think that early on. It was like, I think we kind of expected, we'll go 2 days and we'll figure out what those 2 days, and it was 3. Then it just became like this is something that we need to do every day. So, we exchange those early morning text messages. You ready?
I was about to ask how that happened. How many times you sit and honk at the door when someone's not there yet?
It's usually like a 2-word text in the morning, like, "You in?"
That's right. That's exactly right.
So
What time does that text go out? About 5 o'clock or something like that?
no, about usually around 4:30, quarter to
Okay.
five. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
All right.
uh,
That's good. Well, shield lock's a concept in the book, and Dredd calls the shield lock is a team. It's not a club. And the important thing to understand about shield lock is he describes it with three P's. That a shield lock has members that have proximity to each other. There's purpose in the relationship, and it's periodical. So it is an ongoing basis, in that there's these. It's a team that's founded on trust. So taking team to another level, it's shield lock. And I think the best way for us to pick up this concept is in the beginning of the chapter. It talks about, picking up the six. And I love that culture that we have in F3 about picking up the six. And in shield lock is basically saying, a man is blind to a six. And so in our workouts, we pick up a six, a guy that's falling behind. But in a shield lock, we pick up the six when we have friends who can see the things in our life that maybe we can't see. Any thoughts or comments about, shield lock, picking up the six, what that's meant in your guys' life?
Go ahead,
you go
Rich.
ahead, Matt.
You want me? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think when I think of that, obviously a lot of our F3 is built around the physical piece.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Rich and we're both in our 50s. And so that's, I think caring for one another on our physical, but when I think about our friendship and shield lock, I think about the drives, because most of our drives to the workouts are between 15 and 20 minutes each way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're spending a half hour together, and it's usually, we're holding each other accountable, like not just on the physical side, but we're sharing things that are happening with our kids, work, financial stuff. And so we end up like, whether we want to admit it or not, he's putting ideas in my head,
Yeah.
and I think God's working through all of this
Mm-hmm.
in our relationships. But I think that, it's, yeah, I mean, I think that's where it is picking up the sixes. It's not just, the physical side of it. So.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, it starts off as a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
We found that common denominator of the physical fitness, that we were looking to, maintain physical fitness, and we found F3 as a way to do that. The car rides, the camaraderie, the friendship, the fellowship that develops throughout that time. And in our case, being that where we live and the 20-minute ride each way, we get a lot of time in the car together.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's helped to exponentially increase our friendship, because we're sharing things with each other, like he said, bouncing ideas off of each other, confiding in each other, what struggles we might be going through,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're family struggles or a medical struggle at the time, stuff like that. And that's what's helped to elevate me and help to draw me to being out here 5 days a week, is not just the physical part of it, but it's the emotional and the fellowship part of it, where, you find that camaraderie, and you find those people that you can count on to hold you accountable, and to give you advice when you need advice, or sometimes to just listen to you complain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So Dredd, a little bit in the chapter, he says that we use the shield lock to fight the flux. And he describes the flux as this emotional reaction we have to the peaks and the valleys. And that when we have a shield lock, we have people we can count on, so we can begin to almost expect the unexpected, and we're able to depend on each other when we need it. I feel like for me and a lot of men, we need the shield lock for a couple of reasons. One, we need encouragement from someone who knows us enough to say, hey, you can do this.
Right.
But we also need accountability from people who will say, hey, it's time for you to get some courage, to grow a pair, to step into this new thing, not to shirk away from it. Tell me more about, that flux, and how, friendships, either your friendship or friendships in general, have helped you guys with that encouragement, accountability against the flux.
Well, I think that spending the time that we spend together, not just Matt, but the other guys that that frequent the sites that we go to. You're doing coffee once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. You're really getting to know people, getting to develop relationships with them, and with that, level, that increased level of familiarity and friendship, you start feeling like I can actually tell this guy the truth, like,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, I sit there and listen and I'm like, oh yeah, he's screwed. He has a wacky family life, or he's going
Mhm.
through a lot. Over time you feel like you get the license to say, hey, you know what? I might suggest that you would maybe do this, or,
Yeah.
hey, try calling this person, or,
Hmm.
here's a doctor that I would recommend for that particular situation. So
Yeah.
that's where the value has come for me. And as somebody who moved here, left my family, all my extended family is still in New York, and we moved down here to North Carolina. And for a while, I was definitely doing the mascot thing. I was hitting the
Hmm.
gym regularly, but I was working out by myself for, an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. I was in decent shape, but I had absolutely zero shield lock there.
Mm.
It was just all me. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm doing good. I can do this on my own. I can be that lone wolf. But
Yeah.
after about 2 years of that, it was becoming obvious. It became obvious to my wife, and she was like, "You need to find some other guys to hang out with. You need to do
Yeah.
something. Something deeper than just hitting the YMCA 5 days a week." So
Yeah. I think that's great. I think
Yeah.
that when you have wives that are really supportive of what you're doing too, like my wife has always, encouraged me. Like, she's glad that, I'm doing this. I know that that's true of Shannon,
Hmm.
as well with Rich, that's important, an important piece. The other thing too, when I read about that Flux, the thing that struck me is, and I think that this has probably been a maturity just within the last 5 to 10 years, is being comfortable with not being perfect. And
Hmm.
for a long time in my life, it was, so when you're in this flux, like, getting beyond this point of where you can share, it's when you're comfortable with your imperfections. And that's where, like, I think, like, we're able to live our lives a lot more fully,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
when when we understand that, what, fighting at home with my wife is part of building our relationship, like
Hmm.
having those difficult discussions, like if Rich is challenging me on something that maybe I did, it was like, that's good. Like having that kind of that. And so that flux piece, I think that's important. It's just like being comfortable with our imperfections was, it's something that I think helps us to be, and obviously you need to have that trust, which it talks
Yeah.
about, as
Yeah.
part of the book.
Well, I think, man, I love the way you say that. I mean, so much of our insecurities is in our imperfections, but it's a shield lock of men who know you enough to affirm you and who you are, that allows you to say, okay, my imperfections are okay. They're accepted, they're appreciated. I get a different perspective. And you can't, I don't know if you feel that security on your own the way you do when you're surrounded by people who love you, who care about you, who want you the best for you, not just your wife or your kids, but other men who see you in the community and give you permission to be who you are.
Yeah. Something you just said there that I think is really important, Blake, is the them, like like wanting the best for you, I think is what
Mm-hmm.
you said. But
Yeah.
it is like when you love somebody, and that's kind of an uncomfortable word for
Mm-hmm.
like guys, I think, but it really is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
I'm willing the best for, Rich
Mm-hmm.
and, his kids, for them, not for
Right.
me, like for them. And I think, like, like Pawnee, like we've been having this like text back and forth about Duke, and
Uh-huh.
like I want Duke to win because I know that makes him happy. I may
Yeah.
not be the biggest Duke fan, but like I think that that's important with our friendships that we have. Like we gotta really truly want the best for somebody for them.
Yeah. That's good. I know one thing that's really helped me is, in I got inspired at the end of last year. When Goose and Turnover were about to move away, they started like picking up the cafeteria. They kind of took it to another level, it felt like, and they were posting all these pictures, and I felt like I was missing out. And so I made a resolution that I was going to hit more coffees. And I feel so much closer to the community and supported in the community just with that extra time. not just doing Merkins next to you guys, but sharing a coffee, seeing what you're interested in, sharing my heart with what I'm interested in. So that's my encouragement to PAX that are watching is if you don't make time for coffee, do it. Go in a little later. Tell your wife you're going to be home a little later. People are going for coffee and shield locks are being formed and guys don't even know it. You don't have to tattoo shield lock on your arm and put your shield lock buddy next to it to have one. It happens just through trust being built with people that are sharing life together. Hey, I would be remiss if I didn't get you guys to comment on this topic through some of the other areas of your life. And I appreciate you sharing about your friendships. But, for those that don't know, Roscoe P served on the police force for a long time in his first part of his career. Tube Top is a girls basketball coach. Two just intense environments that I know shield lock is probably a concept that shows up. And I'd love to hear you guys tell stories and maybe the importance or where you recognize it when it shows up or not in those environments.
Hey, Blake, by the way, that's one of the best parts about our car rides. I love hearing Rich's stories about I'm on the police. He's got the best stories. So I'll let him go first.
Well, I mean, I don't know what story is really appropriate for here right now as applicable, but I mean, one of the things that I definitely found that I was missing after I left the police department was those tight-knit relationships that were formed while I was there. When you work in a job where you kind of feel like you're in the trenches and you have to depend on people, I think you form strong bonds, much like we do here at F3. And yeah, it happens on the workouts, but like you said, I used to come to F3 for the workouts. Now I come for the coffee, and the workouts just kind of the hurdle I have to jump to get there.
Right.
So it becomes that more important. But where F3 has kind of come in relation to the police department for me is when I left New York and I came down here, I left a lot of those relationships. I'm fortunate enough to have two best friends that I've been friends with, one guy since I was 3 and one guy since I was about 8. So I mean, I'm 57 years old now. Do the math. That's a long time. I didn't have that anymore. And meeting Matt in the neighborhood, we were friends. But then when we spent the time traveling back and forth doing all this, that increased it. Spending the time doing the workouts, doing the cafeteria after has helped me to build an entire new group of friends. And help to kind of, as much as you can, replace those old friends and replace those people who helped to support me, who I could bang ideas off of, and that I could go to like I said, to hear my problems and help me work through them throughout the time.
And I bet just besides the social element, I would imagine the police force, you find yourself in situations where you need to know whether you can trust the guy you're working with, and having those trust relationships probably make a difference in how you do your job in a profession like the police force.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think F3 replicates that a little bit. I mean, yeah, we're not talking life or death out there, but when you're in a workout and you're struggling and somebody's willing to drop back and stick with you and get you through that rough part of the workout, it means a lot. It's a similar kind of interaction there.
My guess is if the new guy Costco comes back, it will be because Rio, who's normally out front of every workout.
Yeah.
He stuck back and basically joined his hip with that guy for the rest of the workout. And my guess is if we see him again, which Costco, if you're watching, I pray that you'll come back. It will be because Rio, little did he know, dropped to the back in order to stay with this guy who needed someone to pick up the 6 and be a shield lock just for the workout. So,
well, let's hope that he doesn't come back because Rio was with Rio is one of the guys. I'm glad you mentioned him because he is one of the closer friends that I have in F3, and he does all the little things that make that he cares about you.
That's right.
And that's like one of many examples, Blake.
Yeah. Well, Tube, anything you'd share about being a basketball coach? I'm sure that you can tell when your team is tight and when they're not. And you probably can tell whether they, in the beginning of the season, if you got new players, whether they've reached that, you can probably tell there's a point, I'm guessing, when which you can see it. And I'm sure you can tell when you play another team who has shield lock versus the ones that don't. Any comment, just as we start to take this concept and so we can see it in other aspects of our life.
Yeah, no, the thing I love about the basketball is you're working with young kids and it's life lessons. So there are things that you can either pull from your job or your family and apply to coaching, or vice versa. And so I've been coaching for like 9 years now, and I've had the fortune to have some really good players where we've been to I think now 5 conference championship games over those years, and we've won a couple, but we've also lost a few. And the teams that have won, now there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I can tell you, well, the two where both my daughters happened to play, but they were really close friends. Like they really cared about each other. And I can tell you, I've had more talented teams. But I remember having a vivid conversation with one of the parents, about, one of the kids, they didn't get along with one of the other kids, in school on the team. And I said, they have to be friends. Like they have to, he's like, and this is, by the way, this was a guy that played college football. So you'd think that
he
understands about high performing teams. He was like, they just need to get along. They just need to get along. And I don't agree with that. And I've had that conversation with people at work too. The kids that love one another and are rooting for one another, those are the teams that it goes beyond skill. So, there's a lot that has to go into that when you're coaching. Like now we're in our AAU kind of season where we're going out to Winston-Salem this weekend. The best part about it is the Chick-fil-A. Like we'll spend an hour and a half, 2 hours at a Chick-fil-A where the kids are, building relationships. And that's what, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's at home, whether it's on the basketball court, in my case, that's what really forms winning teams, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Well, as we begin to wrap it up, I just give you guys each a chance to give any, kind of advice or encouraging words. Maybe there's some guys who are mascots and lone wolves, and they're kind of showing up right now, and maybe they're trying to figure out this F3 thing. But my guess is they're hearing your guys' story and thinking, there's something missing in my life. I wonder if I could have a friendship like that. Maybe share any parting words of wisdom to help someone along their journey, form those lasting relationships and what it could mean to them.
I would say just, get out there, come out there. And like you said, make some time, carve out a little time in your busy schedule, if at all possible, to do some of the social things, the second F things, come out. If you can't come to the cafeteria, then come out to some of the other social events that happen at times where you might be able to make it, and forge those relationships with guys, because we're all there for the same purpose.
That's right.
We're there for the fitness, but we're also there for the fellowship. And it's in those places that you're going to be able to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that Rich hit it. I mean, it's sometimes we got to get out of our comfort zone and start with the people, there's always something in common. We have a big, very large group of people, and not everybody are you going to immediately find something in common with. So, you start with the people that you kind of hit things off with, and then from there, things will build. And the other thing I would say is, every single relationship in our life, it is not coincidence. It's meant to be. And so God's working in our lives all the time. And it's through those relationships. So I think we got to kind of lean into that a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Gents, really appreciate your time. Pax, I hope that you'll lean into the uneasiness and know that is a place in your heart looking for connection, and that there's men in your life who are willing to be connected to you to be potentially the shield lock for you that you can be for them. And so Tube Top, Roscoe, appreciate you joining me on this week's podcast. We'll see you guys at the Q Source table.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Take care, guys.
Take care.